listening to Unravel with Natly Denise.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Nightly with Natly. I'm sorry that I'm late once again. I sort of launched something big today and getting blown up right now because I think people are like in their prime time, coming home from work, relaxing, finding out the news, looking at their Instagram, which is where I launched it on Instagram. But for those of you that are wondering what I'm talking about, I'm going to launch my first cosmetic line, and it will be launched on Black Friday at midnight. And I'm super excited about it. This is something that I've been on a silent move about. You know, I didn't announce it because I don't know. I don't like to. I don't know. For this, I wanted it to manifest and then, share it with the world and kind of give that surprise factor. But I'm super excited to announce this. Let me make sure I have the right colors here. But yeah, I just launched I'm going to launch the cosmetic line on Friday at midnight. It's a full face palette. And I've been, so it's got 9 eyeshadows, as you can see. Let me hold it up. It's got 9 eyeshadows, and it has a little bit of fallout because I've been messing with it a lot. But it's got 9 eyeshadows on the left, neutrals. It's got a really cool, like peachy, frosty one on the bottom left. And then it comes with blush and a highlighter, and actually 2 blushes, a highlighter, and a contour. So launching at midnight, Black Friday, and then it comes, the collection comes with 3 lippies, or, nude lips or whatever. So for the dudes that are watching, if you want to get a gift for your little lady, that'll be on sale at midnight. Super excited for that. But I also wanted to mention probably the most important part. I will be also launching a social responsibility sort of thing, like like something where you give back to the community. But I'm going to do something very special. And, this is actually something that's been on my mind for years. So as you guys may or may not know, I used to be a MAC artist. Rocky, who I just saw show up in the chat, I used to work with Rocky at MAC Cosmetics. I was a MAC girl. I was a makeup artist, as I said a billion times. And something that has been on my mind is like, if I ever had my own cosmetics company, I would do the same thing that MAC did, which what MAC would do is they would devote one line called 𝑓𝐫𝐫𝐿, and they would pretty much like give back to the community by putting their funds back into manufacturing. And then they would sell that line and take every single penny, every single cent of that sale and give it to the, for their cause, for MAC Cosmetics, it was for HIV and AIDS research. But for my cause, as you guys know already, you guys know your girl, you know what I fight for, you know what I'm in it to win it, and that's to eradicate human trafficking. And so with the 𝑓𝐫𝐿 line, and I'll have more colors, more shades that will end up joining the line. This is the first. So this is the only singular 𝑓𝐫𝐿 color. Every single cent of anything from 𝑓𝐫𝐿 line will go toward the rescue and aftercare of human trafficking victims. Every single cent. So basically how it works is I'm going to tithe. That's how I live my faith. I tithe. And so I'm going to tithe profit margins from my company, and I'm going to put it back into manufacturing, the 𝑓𝐫𝐿 line. And from there, every single cent of that sale will go towards human trafficking, rescue, and aftercare. And so I'm very, very, very proud of that, about that. And it's surreal because like I've thought about this for a long time, ever since I worked for MAC. I'm like, it's not that I'm against like HIV, AIDS and research and all that, but there are a lot more causes out there. And I think, this being the biggest epidemic of our lifetime, for years, for an ancient amount of time, we still haven't eradicated this problem. And I always talk about this with, survivor care, aftercare, rescue. It's expensive. It's lengthy, it's costly. And there's just not enough help out there, and I want to devote something of mine that is, for my company, Natly Denise Cosmetics. So whenever I have more of these, if I have 4 shades, if I build it up to 20 shades, whatever it is, whatever sales out of that line, the 𝐓𝐫𝐫𝐪 line. So this is the 𝐓𝐫𝐫𝐪 line. And as you can see, it's a maroon type of color. Every single cent will go towards human trafficking, rescue, and aftercare. And I'm so proud of that. I pat myself on the back because that's been on my mind for years, guys. This has been on my mind for years, that, these companies virtue signal and, they vow that they care about this cause or that cause or whatever. But, these causes that they actually vow to, I guess, like participate in, or, what they take part of, it doesn't really help the community. It's more so just virtue signaling. And anyway, with that being said, this is going to go 𝐓𝐫𝐫𝐪. I will have these also on sale at midnight on Friday, and the price of these will be $17.76. $17.76. $17.76. You guys get it? $17.76. And every single cent of this will go towards that. So I'm very proud of that. Very, very proud. Juliana, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that generous contribution. And she sent me a super sticker. Thank you so much, Juliana. My wig is snatched. So I'm super, super, super enthusiastic tonight. I'm just so elated that I'm receiving so much support out there. And, that's always the best thing, is support. And, maybe this monologue will serve for something, because, I've seen a lot of the movement, the patriotic movement and all these, like, I see a lot of infighting that happens in the movement, and a lot of it is dumb and it's stupid and it's childish. And, I just want to be vocal about this, that so long as people are not, contributing to society or doing anything for the community or doing anything for humanitarian issues, they really shouldn't have a voice in your head. They really shouldn't have any sort of factor or, any sort of determinant in your life or in your actions, because, people like that will not perpetuate good in the community by actually doing something, by actualizing what they're talking about. All they can do is talk and talk and talk and talk. And, it's time we do things. It's time we physically manifest these things that we ought to take the captain wheel on. We ought to take the reins on. We ought to start our own companies and our own, I guess, economies. And, in order to do that, it has to come from an idea, and that idea has to manifest, So, whatever chatter is out there about, you're a shill if you start a company, or you're a shill if you sell a product, whatever. We're in a capitalistic society. Why would we not capitalize on what we can turn for good, and make a life for ourselves? So I don't know who needs to hear that, but if you have heartstrings being tugged right now to do something that has been on your heart, that God put a dream in your heart, and all you have is these voices surrounding you saying, like, we can't do that or whatever, because of whatever, self-thought reason, really what it is. Don't listen to that, and do what you do. Do what you do, and manifest those dreams that God put in your heart, and keep pushing. Even when it's hard, keep pushing. And you will see fruit if you put your faith in God and you go along with what he has put in your heart. You go along with his will. Okay. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but this is a very real life right now in 2021. And we absolutely need to capitalize, on these things morally. We need to capitalize it in our lifetime, in our livelihood, in our day-to-day. We need to capitalize on these moments. 2021 is very, very, very important. It is pivotal. And I want to be your encouragement to go out there and do something. Do something. So with that being said, let's get to the news. Let's pivot into the news. And I appreciate you guys' comments. Amen, sister. I want to make a difference too. Juliana, you can make a difference. You can make a difference. Get out there, pursue your dreams, and turn it into good. The day you plant a seed is not the day you eat the fruit. Exactly, Megan. That's exactly right. The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. And many of us, I know I'm going into a monologue before my newscast, but we live in this microwave society where we expect instant gratification, for the things that we sow or the ideas that we have. And they might be written down on paper. They might be a domain that you just bought, just to manifest it a little bit. But the seeds are never, the fruit is never the same thing that you sow that day. It takes time. It takes perseverance. And even now, I'll tell you the truth. I'm transparent. I'm still persevering through, a lot of unknowingness. And, but still God has me in this place. Still every single day I wake up and he still has me in the place I'm supposed to be. So with that being said, thank you. Thank you, Tank Darla, for saying that. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. So let's get into the news. I have the first story being a Epstein story, which is very interesting that he's even coming up with new details. So from the Daily Mail, I'm a coward. I wouldn't kill myself. How Jeffrey Epstein fooled jail. Oops, I said his name. So I'm supposed to say Epstizzle. How Epstizzle fooled jail psychologist 2 weeks before hanging himself had the fatality, because the story claims that we all know. As 2,000 newly released prison docs shone light on his final days, including his complaint about his running toilet. So again, just some details. And again, these might be little nuggets of info that we could probably tie into other things. Let's see what this has to say. Epstizzle used his last days alive at Manhattan jail complaining about his running toilet and fooling jail psychologists into thinking he was not suicidal 2 weeks before hanging himself in his jail cell. Okay, so let's just pause right there. Why would we think that he's fooling the jail psychologists? Okay, this to me is hinting that he was full on cueing us. He's cluing us into this, that he was probably saying these things outright to make a statement that he would not do that to himself. Maybe. Let's read on. More than 2,000 pages of Federal Bureau of Prisons records obtained by the New York Times just days before Epstein's alleged co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell is set to start trial revealed Epstizzle was a con artist up to his last day. Among the unclassified pages, which were uncovered after the Times filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, was a clinical intervention report, which was filed July 11, 2019, and stated that Epstizzle continues to deny any suicidal ideation or intention or plan. I have no interest in killing myself, the disgraced financier told a prison psychologist, according to the BOP documents. He also said he was a coward and did not like pain. I would not do that to myself. So, okay, let's pause here. I don't know who is this author. Who's the author, or who is the writer of this article? Shannon Tyler. Okay, so I don't see how, and Daily Mail, this is just my personal opinion. Daily Mail to me, I mean, in my opinion, they do a pretty decent job. This is always like the first thing I go to just to be pointed to certain subjects, not necessarily that I'll always get the article here. Sometimes I go to the original source, like here it names New York Times. But in this article, it's almost as if the writer is vouching for this idea that 𝐓𝐫𝐻 actually did it to himself. When I'm reading this so far, it sounds a lot more like a confession of 𝐓𝐫𝐻. Like, I don't plan on doing this to myself. I don't like pain. I wouldn't do it. Like, to me, that's more confessional than it is trickery. Interesting. Continued on. During another psychological evaluation just days after arriving at the prison, 𝐓𝐫𝐻 told psychologists that being alive is fun. He also reportedly requested to speak with his lawyer, brush his teeth, and have a shower, and the psychologist noted that 𝐓𝐫𝐻 was polite and even had a sense of humor. The psychologist wrote, give me one moment. Let me actually switch to this. Here we go. I think you can see. I'm gonna hold zoom in. The psychologist wrote, he was a future-oriented and noted he denied having ever sexually abused anyone and believed he would be released after his renewed bail hearing. But less than a month later, on August 10th, the financier had the fatality, because this article, again, just keeps trying to nail in that he did it to himself. He really did it to himself, and he was tricking the psychologists. He was pronounced dead while awaiting trial. 𝐓𝐫𝐻 was tossed into a federal jail in Lower Manhattan in July 6th after he was being arrested. Continued on. And the continue is a story that we have already seen before, why he was convicted, why he did what he did. So, and also the people he was connected to. So I'm not going to go into all of that verbiage because, I think generically we have at least a high level idea of this dude and the people that he knew, the people he mingled with. But I think the meat and potatoes was at the very beginning of this story where, this writer is trying to portray that 𝐓𝐫𝐻 really did do it to himself. He really did do this. But yet 𝐓𝐫𝐻 himself is like, I would never do that to myself. How do we get here where we're literally taking a confession of 𝐓𝐫𝐻 and we're somehow spinning this into, no, but he tricked the psychologists? Because I think majority of the population really speculate on the cause of his end. There's just a lot that doesn't make sense. His height to bunk, the method in which he hung himself, the type of what is the word that I'm looking for? The type of force he would have to need to jump off the bunk bed in order to break his neck bone right here. There's a lot of inconsistencies, but I'm taking more from this article. And let me say this. Sometimes I do read these sus articles and where it will give these details as if like they're trying to spin it somehow. But like I said, there is a nugget of info here and we caught it, right? Is that 𝐓𝐫𝐻 actually admitted, like, I wouldn't do that, or I'm afraid of pain and all these things. If there was some sort of chance that he was going to get bailed out and he had some sort of bail reform, ideas, I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the people that doesn't believe the official story. So that's that. Continued on. Let's go to the next one. So this one is actually very heartbreaking. And I really think that any child that doesn't have a voice really needs one. They really need to be talked about. And this is a very heartbreaking story. This is a mom and dad that poisoned their own son. Okay, this is graphic. Okay, let me just warn you. This is footage of their poisoned son struggling to stand and and again, I know this is uncomfortable to watch. I know this is uncomfortable to hear, but the reason why I go there in my podcast, the reason why I bring you guys the heart-wrenching stories is because this is what I always say, our hearts need to be disturbed into action. Okay. If our hearts are not disturbed into righteous action and righteous anger to act upon, being the voice of vulnerable children, being the voice of people who are exploited, children that are exploited, if we do not have that tug in our heart, how are we supposed to get there? If not willingly. But just to let you know that this stuff is going on. So this is a moment, 6-year-old boy, this is coming from the New York Post, struggles to stand before. He was allegedly poisoned and tortured to death by his dad and stepmom. Thomas Hughes, 29, and Emma Tustin are accused of murdering Arthur 𝐿aBeanjo Hughes, who suffered a unsurvivable brain injury. The youngster was allegedly subjected to a campaign of cruelty before his death and matched the medical definition of child torture. Police today released CCTV footage and audio recordings played to jurors at Hughes and Tustin's murder trial. In one recording, Arthur can be heard crying, "No one's going to feed me." Harrowing video footage taken hours before his death also showed him waking up on the living room floor where he had been sleeping at home, Shirley, in England. The clip was recorded at 8:30 a.m. on June 16th of last year, by which time little Arthur was said to be so frail he could barely pick his bedding. Describing the footage, prosecutor Jonas Hankin QC told the jury, Arthur wakes up and stands. He appears to be struggling to fold his duvet. He appears to be crying and struggling on his feet. He drags his duvet on the floor out in the living room. Arthur appears wobbly on his feet and attempts to move around, wearing the same onesie he had been for the 5th day in a row. When he finally gets to his feet, he appears to stumble and walk limply toward the door. Towards the end of the 2-minute clip, the little boy edges out the room, at one point loses grip of his bedding. After picking it up in his hand, he ushers himself out the living room. The court was told Tustin recorded more than 22 hours of videos of Arthur in distress. Another 23-second recording. Arthur can be heard crying, "No one loves me." God, dude, like this is, I have to come back to my community. I have to come back to my community here and read your, yes. I mean, this is sick, because of what we're hearing here now is that if the stepmother was recording this video in his distress, then in a way, if not fully a way, this is in fact probably a snuff video production. Now, if you guys don't know what a snuff video is, it is a very dark, sadistic form of entertainment for sick people who usually find this on the dark net, or they'll go to like gory sites, something like that, where they actually enjoy seeing people get hurt. Now, sometimes these videos, they get gory and they get very graphic. Now, although what in the screen still, you can see that, it's still very disturbing that this little boy is, very weak and trying to sustain himself. But this is pointing to some sort of sick, sadistic enjoyment in seeing this little boy suffer, as she did record many videos and 22 pictures of him suffering. He also repeatedly says, "No one is going to feed me," in another harrowing soundbite. The living room CCTV was featured heavily during the trial, showing that this is happening to Arthur in a lockdown last year. Now, that's also a really good point to make. A lot of these cases are they're not even being surfaced, and that's one danger to people being confined in their homes. And this was actually, this headlines quite a bit in the trafficking headlines that I would observe for myself. there were many local news stations that would report this, like, hey, this could be causing harm because we have no transparency into these homes anymore. Offices are closed, so social workers are not going to be as, I guess, mobile in these situations. And this is one little tidbit. This is just one little transparency as to what could be going on in homes as we are speaking right now. As we are speaking right now, there could be no transparency going on into the victims being abused in their own homes by sick people like this. So this was happening in a lockdown. Jurors have watched CCTV of Tustin tucking into McDonald's while Arthur was left in a hallway for 14 hours and forced to sleep on the floor. They also previously heard audio clips Tustin recorded of Arthur sobbing while he allegedly was being abused. He cried on one clip, "Daddy's going to throw me out the window. Daddy's going to throw me out the window. Daddy's going to throw me out the window." On June 16, Tustin allegedly beat Arthur to death when he waited 13 minutes to call the emergency phone in England and tell them that he was barely breathing after he was headbutted to the floor. Paramedics arrived to the home to find Arthur laying on his back, completely lifeless. Quite pale with purple lips, it was said. Arthur died in the hospital the next day with the cause of death being a head trauma inflicted on him by an adult, consistent with being vigorously shaken and his head banged repeatedly against the hard surface. Doctors found he was poisoned with so much salt he was unable to put up a fight before his death, jurors heard. The court was told the youngster had more than 6 spoons worth of the substance in his system, the highest level a medic had ever seen. And I will continue reading the story. Because this is, again, this happened in Houston. Not this particularly, but you guys remember the mother and her boyfriend living 15 minutes away from an apartment they were actually renting out for their children. The boyfriend beat the little 8-year-old boy to death, left his corpse with the siblings to decompose and rot for an entire year while it was pest infested. I mean, this is why I talk about it, because nobody is talking about these things, and these things are happening behind closed doors where we can't see them. And we can't assess behavioral patterns. We can't see their faces because sometimes these schools are muzzling up the kiddos, and it's like, there's so many things. These details matter, and this is why we talk about it. He was allegedly segregated and isolated for up to 14 hours a day, deprived of a bed, food, and clothing. He had 130 bruises from his head to his feet. He had 93 areas of injury, including his head, arms, legs, and torso, and 25 sites of bruising on his scalp, face, and neck that raised serious concern for a non-accidental injury. So, continued on. This is they talk about trial talk, and it says when he told officers, "I put Arthur in this position. I'm accountable." The dad added, "There's a long ways to go, but I'm guilty of it. I don't want other people to suffer my ignorance, my neglect. My mom, my dad, I don't want to suffer. I don't want Emma to suffer." So it goes into the trial, and I do want to play that clip for you to just, again, you have to understand that this is what's going on. This is what's sick in the world, and this is what we're up against. This is why I call everybody to mobilize. Get involved in your community and look out for these kids. I don't think there's sound. Okay, there's no sound. Oh, there is. There is. No sound. Got it. Okay, now I'm back. I'm back. I apologize. I don't know why that happens, why I get muted, but I'm back. I apologize. But there was actually no sound to the video. I think maybe I lost sound when I played the video, but yeah, there was nothing that you guys missed in the video. But basically what I was saying is that this is why, we've got to show these things. This is why we have to talk about it. This is why, these things are platformed here on the podcast, because these are stories that are not being heard, because these things are happening in, houses that we can't see, apartments that we can't see. Social workers can't go see them because office is closed or there's new restrictions. So, this is why I talk about this. So anyway, I apologize. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm back. I apologize about that. Hopefully I wasn't gone for long. All right. Time for some trafficking headlines. Let's switch the logo here. So we're walking into the Daily TrafficK, where I bring you the latest in human trafficking and sexual exploitation news. So this first story is coming out of Seattle. Police, 2 teens rescued in a suspected sex trafficking ring in Seattle, 2 arrested. Seattle police rescued 2 teens who they believe were victims in a suspected sex trafficking ring in Aurora Avenue. On Thursday night, the Seattle Police Department's high-risk victims unit was investigating commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking in Aurora. During the operation, investigators said that police arrested 2 men who offered to pay undercover officers for sex, and HRVU detectives contacted 5 women involved in prostitution. Police also said officers rescued 2 17-year-olds who they believed were victims. They also later released to their families. The investigation remains ongoing. According to police, the officers processed and released the 2 men and plan to request charges with the city attorney's office. The HRVU works to stop commercial sexual exploitation, and detectives investigate sex and labor trafficking of both foreign and domestic victims, as well as sexual assaults in sex trafficking. So, again, teens, young people, this is what they go after, and there are more victims out there that are, children underage that are coerced into this life. And pivoting to this story, it's a bit of an update. I actually covered this about maybe a night or 2 ago about, let me just make sure my microphone is on. Let me make sure my microphone is on. I'm paranoid now. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so, okay, awesome. My mic is working. Okay, so about a day or 2 ago, I brought you guys the story of this Philippines-based pastor who trafficked in girls and women from the Philippines to the U.S. to basically be exploited. He had sex with girls who were as young as 12 years old, and he utilized his twisted, incorrect doctrine. And, of course, this pastor claims to be Christian and all these things, but he actually twisted doctrine to condemn or, make them feel convicted to do the things that he wanted to exploit them to do. So, as an update for that, U.S. prosecutors on Thursday indicted to Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder. They indicted him, Apollo Quibloy, and 2 of his administrators on the charges ranging from conspiracy and sex trafficking of children to fraud and coercion. The church backed Duterte's candidacy in 2016, and the leader was been known as the president's spiritual advisor. The Philippines always cooperates when it comes to extradition or process of extradition. We will cooperate if there is an extradition request. Whoever that concerns the Philippines will cooperate. Duterte's acting spokesperson, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, said in a press briefing. Asked whether or not Quibloy would remain in Duterte's spiritual aid, Nograles said, "Let's just wait for the president to speak about that." Oh, well, that's a new detail. I didn't know about that. That's a completely new detail. And that actually puts a big spin on things. Do you understand that this could be actually pretty big? Let me explain what's going on here. Duterte is the president of the Philippines, right? And this guy, Pastor 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐻𝐫𝐻, was the pastor that was twisting the doctrine and coercing these girls and women to basically be exploited for his gain, whether it was sex, whether it was whatever, you know. He was actually this pastor that's being, you know, convicted right now, or investigated rather. He was actually the spiritual advisor to the president of the Philippines. Okay. That's weird. And I have a lot of questions. This is, I don't know where else you're going to hear this. I don't know where else you're going to hear this. Okay. But this is a big story. Okay. This is the Philippines elite, the president being advised by this now being investigated, possibly a sex trafficker with lots of clues as the investigation does continue to unravel. No pun intended, because of this this podcast. But that is a big detail. If this more likely trafficker was a spiritual advisor for the president of the Philippines, that's why they don't want to comment on it. Yep. Where would you guys hear this news? You want me, guys? Let me read that piece again, just so you grab the context of it. U.S. prosecutors on Thursday indicted the Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder Apollo Quiboloy and the two of his administrators on charges ranging from conspiracy and sex trafficking of children to fraud and coercion. The church backed Duterte's candidacy in 2016, and its leader was been known as the president's spiritual advisor. Yep. The Philippines always cooperates when it comes to extradition processes of extradition. We will cooperate if there is an extradition request. However, that concerns the Philippines will cooperate. Duterte's acting spokesperson, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, said in a briefing, asked whether or not Quiboloy would remain Duterte's spiritual aide. This right here. Asked whether or not Quiboloy, the man being indicted, the man being investigated for sex trafficking children and women to the United States, would remain Duterte's spiritual aide. Nograles said, let's just wait for the president to speak about that. And I guess the juice of the story is that, you know, the U.S. is going to comply with investigation. But again, that's some pretty big news. You guys caught that. One charged in, this is pivoting now to another story by Twin Cities Pioneer Press. One charged in a New York-based sex trafficking operation discovered in Roseville Hampton Inn. A Minneapolis man was charged Tuesday in connection with a prostitution ring police discovered operating out of a hotel in Roseville. 𝐓𝐫𝐿 𝐸, 24, was charged in Ramsey County District Court with one felony count of promoting prostitution. According to the criminal complaint, Roseville police acted on information that received that women were being prostituted in 3 rooms on the 3rd and 4th floors of the Hampton Inn in 2050 Auna Lane. As they watched the hotel, they observed multiple men going in and out of 3 rooms, each staying for a short period of time. Several of these men were stopped and confirmed to police that they had responded to an ad and paid for sex in the rooms. With women of Asian descent, charges say. Lodging records listed the guests as Asian women with ties to Flushing, New York, a city known for criminal organizations which engage in sex trafficking of women, in the complaint states. On November 18th, police pulled over an SUV that had been driving the women between airport and the hotel. 𝐸𝐿 was the driver, and the address on his driver's license was Flushing, New York, according to the complaint. Cal told the police that the third person employs him to drive the women, according to the complaint. He said he knows the women sell sex and they give him money from the sex acts. He said he passes the money to another man. Text messages on his phone indicated arrangement had been going on for at least 20 days, charges say. He is currently being held at Ramsey County Jail and was expected to make his first court appearance on Tuesday. Flushing, New York. All right. Actually, this is a really great story to mention. And this has to do with volunteership, and this is where also my passion lies within the counter-trafficking movement, as I always call people to volunteer and come to action. This is why we must volunteer. And as an update with Counter-Trafficking Alliance, there's still a lot of things to be done. Right now, we're in the process of doing some data analysis within law enforcement stats. And I finally pulled a sheet of all of the vetted organizations that actually have beds in America. And it's not a lot. I think there were like 100 organizations on one sheet in America. So with that being said, I know this is a sideline conversation, but we have that sheet, and now we're looking at law enforcement statistics to determine, what and illustrate what do we need, how many arrests are being made, how many victims are being rescued, where are they going, and how many beds are in America. Now let's fill the gap. Okay. So that's where we're at. And this is it's a bit more intricate than I expected to find this information out, but that is what's happening with Counter-Trafficking Alliance. Just wanted to give you guys that update. So post from community, nonprofit seeks 75,000 men to help end human trafficking. Against the backdrop of several high-profile federal trials, state and community leaders today called the men to take a stand against human trafficking and the commercial sex trade. The goal is to enlist at least 75,000 men to join the cause. That's a really good call. I like this cause. One of the best ways to make a change to happen is by educating our friends and neighbors. By raising awareness, we inspire one person to stand up and then another and another. It's like dominoes. Men need to play a responsible role in this issue. We can't absolve ourselves from the responsibility of trafficking because in reality, human trafficking is perpetuated by men mostly. During an online news conference, members of law enforcement, state and local governments, religious institutions, and business community gave their backing for the 4th annual 𝐓𝐫𝐻MAD campaign, human trafficking educators working with men and boys to stand against the demand. Asked men to take a public stand against human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of adults and children. In its first year, 2018, 3,000 men to the 𝐓𝐫𝐻MAD pledge. That's great. In 2019, the goal was 6,000, but the result was more than 40,000 thanks to social media. Last year, nearly 60,000 men in 11 states and 2 foreign countries took the pledge. All right, I got to look these people up. I need an alliance with them. I'm going to just copy that. 𝐓𝐫𝐻MAD is a program of Convergence Resource Center, a faith-based nonprofit community service organization helping women rebuild their lives after trauma with an emphasis on justice, involved women and female survivors on human trafficking. So I love this. I think they pretty much gave the punchline in the first few paragraphs that these are men that actually, get involved, taking a stance. And look, let me say this, it is needed, highly needed. I have a friend that leads a counter-trafficking ministry. And he actually opened my eyes to this, that look, there's not a lot of men in the movement. And partial to it is not that, men are just not wanting to take a stance. It's that, maybe there's this misconceived notion that they can't really help because a lot of them are women and they don't want to scare them. And which is a good, it's a good point to bring up. But there are a lot of things that we need a lot more men in the counter-trafficking movement for sure. For example, one thing could be a great result from that is being a good example of what a good man is versus what these survivors have been faced with for a very long time. Some of it is family dynamics. Some of these survivors have never had a family. or a normal childhood or home or background. And so having that sort of familial dynamic in a positive manner really does also do some good. So yes, this is a great call to action. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it because, there's a lot of women that are in the movement. We need a lot more men to join in on the cause. Next story, coming from 13 News Now, Navy Lieutenant Commander accused of sex trafficking in Henrico County. A Navy lieutenant commander based in Hampton Roads was in jail in Henrico County Tuesday, accused of sex trafficking. The online system for Virginia counts showed Lieutenant Commander Charles Cranston Jr. was arrested on November 18th for an offense that supposedly took place on November 2nd. Cranston.
Turning now to an update to breaking news in Norfolk. We brought you last night at 11 o'clock. Police now say an 18-year-old.
My goodness. Oh my God. That scared the bejesus out of me. Cheese and crackers, man. Oh, I don't know where that came from. I hate when that does that. I hate when it does that. When it just automatically plays video and then my volume's all the way up. My bad, guys. I apologize. I just got really flustered. Okay, let me continue this story. Cranston is assigned to U.S. Fleet Forces Command Anti-Terrorism Force Protection Unit in Norfolk. A public affairs official in the Navy provided the following statement. We can confirm Lieutenant Commander Charles Cranston was taken into custody by Henrico Police Department Division on November 18th. The Navy takes this matter seriously and is fully cooperating with law enforcement. For questions regarding the investigation, please contact Henrico Police Department Division. The biographical information the Navy was able to provide shows that Cranston enlisted in 1994. He has a number of awards and decorations listed on his service record. The online court system for Henrico County General District Court shows that Cranston was scheduled to have a lawyer appointed December 10th. All right. I apologize for that glitch, guys. So, we went through a lot of news. I apologize. I know that volume was, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like just shocked me. Guys, thank you so much for being so attentive to the darker side of the news. This is the news that definitely doesn't get shared a lot. So I appreciate your support and I thank you for being a listening ear or listening and watchful ear if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. I appreciate you guys so much. Hey, thank you so much, Rocky. And I think you're the only mod tonight. Thank you again for modding, Rocky. I appreciate you. Thank you all for your generous attention to the news. And I will catch you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys get a restful night. I stayed up all night launching my creating the promo for my product. So I'm quite tired and that's why I'm a little bumbly today. So I'm going to go get some rest, wash this makeup off, put on some night jammies, Anyway, you guys have a great night or morning. I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I'll catch you soon tomorrow.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natly Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.